Now, I have a very interesting story for you guys. Probably a lot of British subscribers don't even know that this happened, but it did happen and it's quite hilarious. Now, before I get into the story, I need to provide you with just a little bit of international context, so please bear with me. The story happens during the Cold War, and as you guys know, there was very little trade between Western nations and the Eastern Bloc, which was under the Iron Curtain. And it was called the Iron Curtain just because it was a closed off system. So trade, as well as even political conversation, was very difficult to be had. And as this is going on, you have the event which marked a change in this way of thinking. The Soviet Union decided to invade Czechoslovakia because within the Czech country, you now have a couple of reforms, which is moving the country away from communism and towards prosperity. So the Soviet Union couldn't allow that to happen and decides to invade. But one nation within the Iron Curtain chooses not to do so, and that is Romania. With the communist dictator Ceausescu at the helm, he refuses to invade Czechoslovakia because he says that communism doesn't encourage imperialism. He doesn't view that the teachings of Karl Marx support an invasion of a country that wants to determine a different fate. So because of that, a lot of Western leaders are now looking at Romania, and Ceausescu in particular, as the good communist, as maybe he can be the gateway into the Iron Curtain. Maybe trade and diplomatic relationships could happen between this neutral state called Romania. So unsurprisingly, you now have Ceausescu being invited to France, being invited to the United States, being invited to the United Kingdom, in order for people to keep proposing various business deals and trying to set up relations with this state that seems to have gone rogue. And what happens is that the United Kingdom also issued an invitation to Ceausescu. Now, to the public, this was sold as the United Kingdom is trying to congratulate Ceausescu for not invading Czechoslovakia. In reality, the United Kingdom didn't really care about Czechoslovakia in the slightest. What they wanted was to sell a couple of planes to Romania because the UK at the time was struggling for cash, and this was an excellent business opportunity, as well as to try to open a market within the Eastern Bloc, which would have been very advantageous for the UK. The problem was that pleasing a communist dictator was incredibly difficult, and when you deal with corruption of an unimaginable scale, you have to become a little bit more multicultural and accept some of the corruption to happen into your country. So what I mean is that the visit was mainly conditioned on the fact that the wife of the dictator, Ileana Ceausescu, should receive scientific merit from a British university. Now, for those of you who aren't in the know, communist dictators almost universally created a cult of personality for themselves, where their powers and their abilities were exaggerated in the media. But all of this took it to a whole new level when you're talking about the wife of Ceausescu. You see, this woman came from poverty and only went to school for 4 years of her entire life. That's right, she only went to school for 4 years. She never even entered high school. And despite the fact that she didn't even know the chemical formula of water, she had a cult of personality around her created by the secret police as well as members of the press, presenting her to the public as one of the smartest scientists that the world has ever seen. She was a world-renowned chemist with vast knowledge into different fields. And it was so bad that if you were any type of scientist in Romania and wanted to write a PhD, you could only do so if you lied that you studied under the guidance of Ileana Ceausescu. In other words, every single invention that happened in Romania, a country of over 20 million people, was due to Ileana Ceausescu. And the way they created this mythos was that whenever she would go, for example, in the United Kingdom and talk with other experts, she would surround herself with a team of experts And when the other people asked her a question, she would consult with her team, and then her team would give an answer. But it was all a charade. Everyone knew that this is fake. However, no one dared calling it out because of fears of repercussions. If you were to say that she isn't really a scientist or that one of her inventions isn't actually her own, you would lose your job for spreading dangerous and harmful misinformation. So people went along with it. But the question is, will the United Kingdom go along with it? The visit of the Ceausescus in the UK was tangent on having Ileana Ceausescu receive a merit, not from a Romanian university this time, but from an actual prestigious British institution. And of course, the Royal Institute of Chemistry and the Polytechnic of Central London provided exactly what was required and gave Ileana Ceausescu an honorary title, which she exploited back in her home country. She clearly debunked all the conspiracy theorists of the time, showing that, look, even prestigious institutions in the UK recognize my fame. Just think about how stupid you are saying that I don't know science. How many people would have to be in on this conspiracy to lie and to manipulate the facts to make me, Ileana Ceausescu, look as a world-renowned chemist? So clearly, we need to crack down harder on conspiracy theories and dangerous misinformation. But with that story aside, the visit could now actually take place. But not only that, the lie was so big and so far away from the truth that if you were to even say, hey, I grew up in the village with her and I know she only went to school 4 years of her life, this woman doesn't even have high school, you'd have been treated as the most crazy person imaginable. You would have been treated like the worst crackpot conspiracy theorist. Just because the lie was just so huge away from the truth. And she actually had institutional credit. It wasn't just the British that acknowledged her. France was no better. Even the French gave her credit. So you may say, okay, well, maybe the whole Romanian system is corrupt. And maybe the whole Romanian system is in on it. But why would the French? Why would the British? How deep is this conspiracy theory, you crazy asshole? So now that the conspiracy theory has been firmly debunked, the communist fact-checkers did their proper job in punishing anyone that disagreed, the visit to the UK could finally take place. However, behind the scenes, something unknown to the Ceausescus took place. The French president at the time phoned the Queen of England to tell her that communists require different accommodations than normal people. So the Queen of England was advised to remove any valuable items from their rooms in London that could be removed or even unscrewed. For you see, the communists, when they went before into the French palace of Élysée, they actually acted like burglars and stole everything that wasn't nailed down. Now, it's important to understand why they did this. It's not that in Romania they lacked wealth. It's not that they actually needed more stuff. It was more like an act of dominance. It was more of akin to, yeah, we did this, what you gonna do about it? It was communists trying to show to the Western aristocracy that they are in charge now. So, as such, the Queen had to actually remove every valuable item from within her property where the Ceausescus would be sitting. And all of this mixed with the historical baggage that communists have shown towards the aristocracy in the countries that they occupied, meaning that perhaps some acquaintances of the Queen, or maybe even some distant family members, suffered greatly at the hands of the tyrants. It is easy to explain why the Queen didn't have much sympathy for the Ceausescus. How little sympathy did she have? Well, apparently, it is the first and only time that it has been reported where she actually hid behind the bushes in her own palace in order to avoid some of her guests. When she was walking the dogs, she saw Ceausescu coming and she apparently hid This is what she actually told people in the papers. Now, this did not stop her from giving the Ceausescus the honorary knighthood, which is something that I found very interesting, because unlike the ride with the carriage that it's British protocol to give and it's part of tradition, giving a communist leader an honorary knighthood is not part of British tradition. So now you can see why Romanians are very skeptical of governments and institutions. It's because here in Eastern Europe, we realize that people can be corrupt. And people form institutions, people form the government, and as such, both institutions and the government can be corrupt. Even the ones in the West that we used to hold with such high prestige and high regard, it does seem that they are willing to bend towards the corruption when it is within their financial interests, such as giving a dictator's wife honorary academic prestige or giving the dictator himself honorary knighthood. Although we should mention that the Queen did take the honorary knighthood back after the dictator passed away, saying that this left a mark of revulsion at the abuse of human rights in Romania, for which Ceausescu is responsible, as if at the time she had absolutely no clue what is going on behind the Iron Curtain and that there are human rights abuses. But it is what it is. It does show, though, that after the deal was made and after the party involved passed away, that yes, the honorary titles can be rescinded, they can be taken away, and with an apology, everything is okay. Let me know what you guys think, though, and I will see you in the comment sections. Take care. And don't forget that I release 2 videos a day, and the second video is going to deal with why communist governments lied to the people and why the people didn't do anything about it. So yeah, I'll see you in the comment sections and take care.